So today I have got a plethora of fun new toys provided to me by the fantastic people at Gel Press. I've got some great things and I've left them all in the packaging so that I could unveil them and share them in this tutorial with you today. So the first thing I've got that I'm super excited about, and my artwork is actually on the back of the packaging, is the Hard Rubber Brayer 6-inch by Gel Press. Now this is it's a really nice surface for rolling the paint out on the gel plate. Also, the brayer pops out of the frame. So when you want to wash it and clean it and make sure you get clean all in here and in there, the roller comes out. So you can wash the roller and then replace it and make sure that everything is clean and gonna be in lasting condition. So I love the 6-inch brayer because the plate is 8 inches. So that means that it requires very little rolling. So you can keep moving and keep working with the 6-inch brayer. I've got a brand new, no more divots in my 8x10 gel press plate. Now, I want to let you know that let's go over a few tips for storing and keeping your gel plate. So here's the deal directly from Gel Press. Okay, you're going to open this up when it's brand new. You're going to take out the insert. You're going to read it, commit it to memory, and then put it away, aside, and not back in with the gel plate. Put it separately, tape it to the top, or just read it and discard it. But it's not going to go back in the clamshell. Okay, the gel plate itself is going to come with 2 sheets of Mylar on both sides, a thin sheet of Mylar. Now that also needs to be taken off and discarded. This is part of the manufacturing process and it is not meant to be stored with the plate. It is not meant to go back on the plate. It is not meant to stay on the plate. So your plate needs to come off of the Mylar goes in the trash, and when you store your plate, you're going to put it back in the clamshell, close it up without that brochure, and you're going to store it upright on the shelf like a book. So you're not going to pile anything on top of it that's going to weigh down on top of it, because that will form air bubbles in it. So you want to put it upright like a book on the shelf, okay? That goes for all gel plate products. So whether you've got an impressible or the petite minis or a 5x7 plate for card making, etc., anything made by Gel Press is going to follow those same storage tips. All right. So what else have I got? This I got on Amazon, and this is a silicone sink liner mat. So it's one of those things you put in the bottom of the sink, you cut out the hole for the drain, but it's silicone, it's flexible, and it's got this great pebble pattern on it. It's on my Amazon resource page. That link is going to be below, and there are others available that come in different patterns as well. So that's an extra that I bought off of Amazon, and I haven't even used it yet. Then the next thing I've got is a 7x7 embossed gel plate, and that's from their designer series, and it's called an impressible. So the embossed gel plate has got a pattern raised on it, which is super cool because that means every print that you make is going to infuse this fun pattern into it. So let's take that out. These are very sticky when they're new, the gel plates. So let's move this aside. So the impressibles that I'm using, this is the squares in squares. So it's got a concentric square pattern on it. And it's embossed raised. So it's going to put that pattern onto everything that we print. Now, the next cool thing that they sent me are 2 texture combs. So these are for mark making on the plate. They will allow you to scrape marks into the paint on the plate. And it's got different teeth on each side. So there's 2 combs with 8 sides of kind of unique tooth patterns that you can use to swirl and scrape texture into the paint while it's on the plate. Last but not least, I'm using rice paper on a roll today. This is a 8x20 roll of rice paper. It is Hosho paper, and it is on my Amazon page, and it's the short roll. There's another one on my page. It's a really long roll, like an 18-inch roll. That is going to be a different product from this. This is generally I use the pad of rice paper on my gel plate, but this is exactly the same paper that's in the pad. It's just 8 inches wide, so there's not going to be any excess hanging over the edge of the plate. So you'll get a full sheet. The paper will run full sheet. And when you're working quickly or wanting to make a lot of paper sort of in the same color palette, the roll is nice because you can print and then you can slide it out and print and you can keep on going, and then you'll get a significant amount of paper without individual sheets. It's exactly the same quality and paper. It has a smooth side and a rough side, and you're always going to put the smooth side down on the plate. So it's just an alternative format to the 9x12 or the 12x16 pad. It is the same paper. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do, as I always do, is I'm going to start with a light colored solid. So I'm going to use, not that one, I'm going to use quinacridone nickel azo gold golden fluid acrylic. I'm going to put that out on the plate and roll it with my big fancy 6-inch brayer. This is my lightest color, so I'm going to start with that, and I am going to print onto my rice paper roll. Beautiful. Now, in the interest of making several sheets of this at once, let's go ahead and take advantage of the roll. This is almost out, everybody's favorite color. And I'll make a couple more light colored solids so that we can take advantage of the roll and the ability to make multiple sheets at the same time. So I'm going to shift down and print another solid. And then one more time. And one more. Whoops. Okay. All right, so now I've got 3 light colored solids of nickel azo gold. So I'm using some fall colors. I thought that would be fun. So the next color that I'm going to go to, I've got burnt umber light and alizarin crimson, and those are really similar in value. So I'm trying to go from light to dark. So I think I'm going to take a little copper and mix it in with the burnt umber light and lighten it up. And then my third layer, I think I'll use the alizarin crimson for some fall colors because I'm sort of in a fall mood, right? So I'm going to show you first how to use the silicone sink liner. So when I'm mixing 2 colors, I'm going to use the brayer and I'm going to stir them around like I'm mixing, I don't know, cookie batter, right? I'm always referencing cookies. Stir it and then roll it, because if you just roll it, it doesn't blend together completely well. So I'm going to stir it and then roll it. And now that I look at this, I've got too much copper and it's nearly the same color as my base. So I'm going to just do another light colored solid of that. And reevaluate. Oops, there we go. Reevaluate that next layer of dark. Maybe I'll just go right into the brown. The copper is so pretty though. But what we need to remember is that copper is also an opaque color. You see that you don't see the tick marks through the copper like you do through the nickel azo gold. This is an opaque color. So when we use it at 100% strength, it will block out anything that's below it because of the opacity of it. So let's just then go with the burnt umber light next. I've still got a little copper in my brayer, so I've lightened it up a little bit. So I'm going to swirl it and roll it out. So that's a little lighter than directly out of the container for sure. Okay, so what we're going to do now is I'm going to take this off the roll so I can manage it a little bit better. I'm going to take the silicone sink liner and press it into this paint, and it will remove partial amounts of the paint in the pattern. So I'm pressing it in and I'm lifting it off, and you can see that I've got that pattern on the plate, and I'm gonna put that over my light colored solid. And now I've got a fun rock pattern, and there's still more on the plate, so I'm gonna shift and put it onto the next light colored solid. So now I've got one that is more subtle than the next. So let's go with the straight burnt umber light without any copper in it, because we could go a little darker. This is not as dark as it looks in the container. It looked pretty dark in the container, but when I roll it out, it is kind of a medium value. So I think it's fine to be our next layer. So one more time, I'm gonna press this into the plate to remove paint in that rock pattern. And these do come in other patterns. Pull it off and print it onto my light colored solid. So I'm gonna put it on this one. There we go. And I'm gonna grab that next print and put it here on the last one. So we got some fun kind of rock colored circular patterns. They're subtle because it's pressing and removing paint, but they're giving me a nice pattern with the light underneath. Now these values are kind of close together, so it's not a high contrast, but it's a good base for another layer. So our next step is going to be, let's try the impressible. So I'm just gonna put that on top of my 8x10 plate. I'm gonna go with the alizarin crimson. Squirt that out on the plate. I'm gonna roll this brayer off on a clean piece of paper so I can make sure I get all the copper off of it on a scrap paper. And now I'm gonna roll it. I'm gonna apply some pressure to squeeze this paint because it wants to go down into the low areas of the emboss. So I'm pushing down and sort of squirting it around so that I can make sure that I get it up out of the low areas and onto the high points. So that's just gonna take some pressure. There we go. So now I'm gonna bring back and do another pass with the impressible on top of the second layer that we already did. So this is some great fun square patterns, and I'm gonna scoot down and do it again because there's still paint on that plate. Now, it looks like there's a lot of paint on the plate, but it's in the low areas, and you can see that because I didn't get a big full impression the second time. So what you can do is roll it again, smushing the paint out of the low areas. I'm not adding any more paint, but I'm smushing it back up out of the low areas and getting it to hit the high points of the embossed pattern. So let's try that again and see what happens this time. There we go. There's our pattern again. And one more time, because there's more paint in there, I'm just gonna squish it up. And print. Now, I love the way that geometric patterns look over organic patterns, so I'm really enjoying the combination of the straight concentric lines of the squares multiplied with the circular lines of the silicone sink liner. That's always a fun combination, for me at least, is to combine organic with geometric. So we could continue doing this, but let's try the scrapers. And we're also going to make that another layer on top of everything. So let's just use this paint. Why waste the paint? So I'm rolling it and pressing to bring it up out of the low areas, the debossed areas onto the top, and printing. Oops. I didn't line it up perfectly, but that's fine. Sometimes the way things line up or misalign on a large sheet of paper creates some interesting things that happen in the middle that you didn't anticipate when you were when you were working. So we're gonna take the impressible off. This you're gonna want to run underwater to clean it, to get the paint out of the low areas, or toss it into a warm soapy basin while you're waiting to clean up for the end of your session. So I'm just gonna set it aside. And now I'm gonna go to a darker color on top of these. And if I stay in my fall theme, I could use the Van Dyke brown, which is really dark, or I could go to a dark purple, which might be interesting with the browns. So let's look at Permanent Violet Dark and try that with the comb tools. So I'm going to put Permanent Violet Dark out, and I'm actually going to mix a little metallic gold into that. Just a little bit to sort of give it a shimmer. So here I'm gonna stir and roll and stir and roll. So I get this all blended up, circular stirring and then rolling. So now I have a lovely sort of golden, slightly iridescent Permanent Violet Dark. I love adding metallics to other colors. Don't feel like you have to use them just straight out of the container. Metallics make other colors look amazing. So here we're gonna work with the tool, with the comb scraping tool. So you can go straight lines scraping on the long side. You can wiggle on the short side. We've got some wide teeth here, and then I use these. Now I've got some smaller pointed teeth, so we can go this way with thinner teeth. And then I'm going to grab this one and wiggle and then pull. So I've built myself a sort of a fun pattern there, and I'm going to come back in here and put that over as another layer. Now that looks lovely. It's blocked out a lot of what's underneath it because it was heavy on the paint and because the metallic is opaque. But we've still got paint there. So let's pull another print. This will be slightly less paint. And you can see through it more. And let's scoot over and pull another print. See if we can get a third one out of this. This one will be even more subtle. And you'll be able to see even more through it. So we're going to go from the most opaque to medium to the lighter. Okay, so this is starting to build a really nice, rich, kind of brownish fall color. I'm going to do the Permanent Violet. So I won't do the opaque gold in with it, but I do still have a little gold on my brayer. So it's going to have a little bit of an iridescent gold tone to it. And we're going to grab the scraper again and use a couple of different tooth side edges. Every edge has got a different pattern on it, which is cool. And we'll put that over the last one. So with the scraper, you can make wiggly lines, swirly lines, straight lines, depending on what you're going to use them for. You could make arced lines for flowers. You could make straight lines for stems. You could make horizontal lines for the surface of water. You get to create your own pattern with the scraper, depending on your application and what you think you're going to use it for. So there again, I've got some left over and don't have a lot of room to put that. So let's put it out the end of this one. This is what's nice, again, about working with the roll. I'm working on 4 or 5 sheets simultaneously here as I just keep moving around my roll of paper. So that came out like this, which is another nice layer. So now we've sort of lost our sink liner pattern. So I'm going to bring that back at the end on the top again. And because this is pretty dark, I can only go over it with significantly darker, so maybe Van Dyke Brown, really, really, really dark, which I'm not sure I want to do. Or my second option is I can go over it with something that's opaque, that will block what's underneath it, that won't show through. So the copper is where I started, and that's a pretty close value to what I've got going here. So I'm thinking that my last layer is going to be gold. So either gold or, because these are opaque, metallics are opaque, or bronze. So let's roll that out. I'm going to clean the brayer to get rid of that purple. I've still got a little purple in it, so it's going to get tinted a little bit, but that's okay. So let's see how this is going to look. This is pressing and removing paint, so it's not like a stencil. It's not going to give us totally blank areas to see what we've done underneath through it. So it'll be interesting to see the effect of this on top. All right. So we'll start with the darkest end, which is here. That has the most layers. And I'm going to give it a real light touch and pull it up. Ooh, that is fun. Look at that. That is a lot of fun. So you can really see that on top because the metallic is opaque. So that's super cool. And I've still got another print, so I'm going to pull that with a nice light touch on here. And I'm going to move over and do the same thing. And I'm doing a light touch so that I don't get too heavy of a bronze that's going to block out what's underneath it. So I'm going for a light swipe. So now I've got this wonderful circular silicone sink liner pattern on top again. And we are building some amazing layers. Look at that. Some amazing layers. And the pieces that you get here are totally different than what you get here. So the next thing I would like to do is put out the gold. This will be our last layer, I think. Another opaque color, the gold, and I'm going to put into that a little bit of that permanent violet purple in there. So we'll roll this out, swirling, stirring, and rolling. It's just a little bit purple. We could do a little more. Okay, stirring, swirling, and rolling. We got a little bit more purple there. So let's take our impressible and press that into the plate. Press and remove, and we're going to get our concentric square pattern, as well as the paint is now on the surface of this. So I'm going to bring this sheet here. And now I've got metallic squares back on top. The layering is really the key to success in highly textured collage paper. So let's put that, let's take the comb and scrape where we didn't get the impressible. Make sure we've covered all of our bases. And let's put that here. So that's added down to this end. Lovely. And where can we put this? Now we've gotten it really light and we could do another dark layer. You know, I could just keep on layering this paper. I'm going to put it on here on the very last half. And in the middle here. And now I'm going to come back in with one more last layer, and I am going to bring in this Van Dyke Brown. Oh, it's not open. Don't you hate that? Here's another one. This one's open. So this is going to be my dark last layer. I'm going to use that to ink up the impressible. And I'm going to put that down here. And I'm going to shift it and do it a second time, see if we can get a second print. So now I've got the concentric squares on top again. Then I'm going to scrape through this. And bring those stripes down here to half of this end. So I've still got a partial of the sink liner and then the stripes, so you can start shifting your sheet around and not feeling like you have to print the whole thing. This will give you even more variety. We'll go in the middle here. So here I'm adding it in sections. Which is an interesting effect. And on the end here. So now I'm getting a real nice big long sheet of this beautiful sort of copper, purple, orangey fall colors with a lot of different effects on it. Metallic and rich and dark and multiple layers. So many thanks to the folks at Gel Press. We have just made 1, 2, 3, 4, about the equivalent of 5 sheets of collage paper in this wonderful fall palette. So many thanks to the folks at Gel Press for sending this goodie box that we were able to experiment with today. Thank you for being here, and happy Friday.